Hello everyone, welcome to today's webinar from Rojo Integration. Thank you all for joining us today for our session on how to migrate from SAP Process Orchestration to SAP Cloud Integration. My name is Martin, I'm part of the team at Rojo, and today we will share with you how to actually execute this migration. The main topic is the upcoming end of life of SAP PO, with this approaching in 2027. We're looking to share with you practical insights on how you can execute the migration, and more importantly, look at this migration from the perspective of using this as an opportunity to actually modernize your integrations. Moving on with what we'll be covering today and who will be our speakers, a quick overview of the agenda for today's webinar. First, we're going to discuss the strategic migration insights and share with you the benefits and the key steps which are involved when you're moving from PO to CI. Second, we'll go over integration governance, essentially how you can set up standard processes, rules, and guidelines in SAP CI. After this, we will focus more on event-driven architecture in the context of integration. And at the end, we will conclude with a Q&A session addressing any questions, remarks, or comments that you may have throughout the session. Feel free to use either the Q&A section or the chat section of the meeting to post them there, and we will come back to them at the end. Also, throughout today's session, you'll be hearing from me alongside two of our integration architects, Sander and Herwin. They will share their technical expertise and practical insights, which are based on numerous successful projects we have already completed in this in the area of moving from PO to CI. And before we deep dive into the core topic of today, I also want to share some general information with the audience where actually Rojo sits within the SAP ecosystem. So what is our SAP integration expertise and where this lies in particular. As the name suggests, Rojo Integrations, we do specialize in integration, and within the SAP integration domain, we are an OEM partner of SAP. So what this means is that we develop the standard SAP adapters in SAP BTP to connect to other third-party apps. Our team has been working with SAP Cloud Integration as a platform since its official launch, and moreover, our colleagues are authors of the official SAP integration books. Up until now, we have delivered already countless standard integration adapters and standard integration content with the goal to simplify SAP integration for organizations. We continue to maintain very close collaboration with the product development team of SAP at their headquarters, and we're also involved in product improvements and feature enhancements. Now let's dive into the core of our webinar today, which is how you can actually migrate from PO to SAP CI. Traditionally in SAP PO, many of you are familiar with integrated configurations or ICOs for managing your integrations. And when you have a project of moving to SAP Cloud Integration on the BTP platform, one seemingly straightforward approach could be a lift and shift. This would mean transferring your existing PO integrations and converting them into iFlows and CI. And while this might seem like the quickest option and could be technically feasible, this approach will come with a lot of considerations. Essentially, what could happen is you would end up replicating outdated structures and essentially missing out on the real benefits of a modern platform like SAP CI. So the key point we're trying to make here is the following. The migration from PO is more than just a transfer. Rather, it is an opportunity to rethink your complete integration strategy. SAP CI as a platform offers a modern cloud-native architecture and supports decoupled integrations and scalability in ways that PO cannot and was not intended to do actually. So in general, it will be beneficial if organizations consider this migration project as a chance to unlock new capabilities, automate processes, and yeah, build this foundation for future growth, essentially future proofing their SAP integrations. So instead of viewing this as a challenge, better think of it as a chance for modernization. And in the next sections, we will break down this opportunity into concrete steps and concrete strategies in more detail to give you this practical advice. Now, my colleague Sander will focus more on automation in the migration process and the governance aspect of SAP integration. Over to you, Sander.
Yes, thank you, Martin, for guiding us through this initial stage of the topic. And if you go to the next overview, you will see that in PO to CI migration, you have a typical way of stages that are defined, so a stage-by-stage approach. And you see that the ones that we have highlighted here are migrate, and enhance, because here we will have go a little bit deeper to explain what we're doing here. But overall, you see these different phases listed, and I think there's no better place to start than with the assessment part. In order to move from A to B, you need to understand, you need to know what current integrations you have there that need to be moved. And here we collaborate with SAP's migration tool in place, where it's in a very good condition to assess the let's say fit of your SAP PO integrated configurations, so your current integration scenarios on SAP Process Orchestration, where Martin just referred to, and whether they require any changes when you migrate to CI. So how easily can you migrate a scenario to CI? And it delivers a report and advises where adjustment is needed, where evaluation is required, and it provides even suggestions to go beyond. And those suggestions are important because if we just take the tool as such, it will also be able to move artifacts from PO to CI. It will go into an approach where Martin just referred to. It will look at what is there in PO and then translate it, design it towards CI, but more of a lift and shift approach. And here the suggestions for improvement, for modernization, are key to unlock a more future-proof and modernized integration scenarios and integration architecture. So there are things that we will define as part of these modernization rules, and these can be also automated to a certain extent. So if you look at enhance, exception handling can be automated further. How we deal with security artifacts, how we deal with value mappings, parameterized mappings, but also think about end-to-end monitoring. How could you unlock end-to-end monitoring, and how could you automate that in your CI integrations while already doing that as part of the migration? That will be a very powerful approach, as well as decoupling your integrations even further. There are certain ways of things that work in a certain way in PO, and in CI, since it's a different platform, different framework underlying, we need to maybe have different components together to get a similar, even better experience of the end-to-end integration. And if we can also partly automate that, it will be very, very powerful. So you have to see it as not just a move migration, but as a modernization trajectory and best practices you can use, the latest standards here. And it's an upgrade with new capabilities because you're going to a completely new platform and just not shifting there. And this is the approach that we take with our clients. So we go into improving, optimizing integrations, not replicating necessarily what is there only in PO. And we know that in this process it's more than just technical. I mean, testing is required anyway. We need validation from stakeholders. We need validation from user acceptance testing in order to make sure that integrations still have the same functionality. Now, if we combine it with bringing more benefits and modernizing them, we can kind of fit that in the process together in an organization and also test those changes and at the same point be ready for the future. So let's make it more concrete, because what can we think of? And it's also SAP's philosophy and modernization suggestions, as some of you might know about Clean Core and the other suggestions that are listed here in the lower right of this picture. And related to Clean Core, we can think about replacing certain integration approaches like working with RFCs and BAPIs, but going towards more API driven fully with OData services and using standard OData services. One can think about prominent integration scenarios that we have with third-party SaaS, but also SAP to SAP, that are prominent and that can actually be taken by the standard integrations that are available as integration on the accelerator hub. We then don't have to rethink. We can use what is there standardized, and also know it will be supported, and know it will cover a variety of different use cases with the standard. So think about standard integration content between S/4HANA and any third party, but any other SAP application system. And there's such a rich catalog in CI with all these integrations. We should we should reuse them and utilize them. But it can also be to switch from HTTP adapters that you're using towards standard adapters that are designed to integrate with a particular third-party SaaS application. Integration style can also be adapted. There's also the opportunity to change the integration style. And you might work now with iDocs. This could be a chance to make it towards business events, go towards more async types of integration to decouple it further. And the great thing I think is that we close, or the last part of the session will be focused on unlocking EDA, event driven approach within this migration and what benefits it can bring to you. But what I mentioned about end-to-end observability, monitoring, these alert rules that you apply, you may want to know at every single state of the integration what's happening, and correlate that and show that in end-to-end monitoring. So this is also the opportunity to combine both how you envision that to look in the new platform and how to roll it out and partly automate that. So if you want to use SAP Cloud AOM or any other application, you want to design in advance how you're going to build in these touch points and automate that to some degree. But most of it, what we see across, is also security and protocol improvements. You want to get rid of things that you don't consider up to par in terms of security standards. Think about switching or phasing out HTTP, going away from FTP and go to a more secure variant here. These are the moments also to do that as you're going into a technology transition, as well as basic authentication. This is now an option to move to OAuth and combine these kind of technology shifts. File-based protocols to much more API-driven, and unlock, like I mentioned, business events. So there's a lot, and you can set up those modernization rules to say these are things that we are doing. So we will, in these kind of scenarios, we will consider more pre-built integration content. Here we will, these patterns of interface, they will be more fitting for a decoupled architecture, which we will show later on. So if you set up those modernization rules, you kind of build already a type of framework for how you enhance this migration towards CI. Now, what we did not discuss yet, and that will come in the next page, which we can go to now right away, it's related to, we're going from house A to house B, and it's a completely a new house, completely clean. And what we see happening in enterprises is that organizations, they will work with different teams, and they will work with different parties on a new platform, but also that they have a desire to build risk-free, high-quality integrations, and don't want to have issues when deploying towards higher environments. And it all kind of demands for consistency. So how powerful would it be if we can define those guidelines? We can define how, for us, ideal integration should look like in terms of development guidelines, in terms of modernization rules, naming conventions, error handling frameworks, and define that and do that as part of a process. So we believe this is critical before you want to go towards a new start using a new environment. Because if you have those rules set up, you make sure that the things that land in it, the new integrations, they will stick or to these rules that you have defined. And that's what governance framework is. It's a playbook ensuring that all different teams play by the same rules in the platform. And this will make sure that you're in control of standardization across, and that although you have different variety of different people working with it, you get standardized quality output. Now, one thing is to define that all and to go to an intake and list it all and put it on solutions like Confluent and Confluent, sorry, and there define it and list it down. But it will be of a first purpose, because you can point people and developer teams to say, here you can find the latest naming conventions. Here you can see in which case we go for API driven integration according to a certain decision tree. But and this is how we do error handling. But it would be even more powerful if we can really control this throughout how we work with the platform and throughout our development and delivery process. And that's what we can do, and what we have done with many clients is how we embedded that in our quality validation, security guidelines, and CI/CD processes. Because what if those guidelines, governance rules related to naming convention, error handling, modernization, we embed it in tools like SonarCube, for example. For us, it's more the framework, not necessarily the tool. And when we finish a certain development or we are in a certain stage and we want to go to the next step, and we run this solution, and it can actually point us out already without intervention of one other person to say, hey, you missed this critical points, or you are now actually using HTTP adapter. Well, we no longer want to use that because for us it's a security risk and we want to stick to a latest standard. So if we have that automated control and we embed that in our development processes, then it becomes very powerful because we are in control of setting our own integration standard. The same for versioning guidelines. We can use solutions and repositories for this, and also for CI/CD in general. And can we run the regression testings accordingly as well? And every time when we promote, it should run according to those regression test cases. So in this way, we can embed a way of validating our quality output and have less risk when deploying to higher environment. Same on how we deal with observability, how we do role-based access to facilitate different teams maybe working on a centralized tenant. These are fundamental aspects to control. If we have this all defined well, then we are kind of ready to accept either new developments on the platform or land. So let's say migrate our integration towards this new target platform where everything is thought out in terms of decision trees, in terms of these topics of governance, to have a very controlled process. And that's what we believe in. Now, I think as a next stage, we want to go into showing one of the most powerful modernizations, which will not apply to every single integration, but it's one way to create more future-proof integrations. And I will hand it over to Gerwin to explain more about that.
Yes, thank you very much, Sander. So to understand the advantages that the EDA brings, let's first have a look at the traditional way of integrating. And in this very simple scenario, we see that a SAP system is connected directly to CI, and from CI we are sending data to these three receiver applications. And here we see that SAP is directly coupled with CI. And this presents us with a couple of challenges. First of all, the error messages. So if a error message ends up in error, then in CI there is no way to resend it again. So that means that there is a dependency on SAP to resend the data to the target system. Also, when a target system is down for maintenance, there is no way to stop sending the data. So that means that there some alignment is required between SAP and CI and the receiver application to align on when the downtime is and when the data should no longer be sent. The same goes for processing speed. Also, there we have some dependencies because SAP needs to be aligned with the receiver application in terms of the amount of data that is being sent. And also, adding a new receiver is like building a complete new interface, for which also in SAP a new interface has to be built. So these are the downsides of this way of integrating. So if we now look at how this exact scenario looks like when we apply the EDA pattern, and that is what we see here. So in this scenario, SAP is no longer directly connected to CI, but instead we connect SAP to SAP Advanced Event Mesh. So all the data will be sent to a specific topic. And then from this topic, we can create multiple queues that subscribe to the same topic. And then the next step is that our CI flow reads the data from a specific queue and then sends the data to the receiver system. So in this pattern, you see that the SAP sender system is completely decoupled from CI and the receiver applications. So this brings us a couple of advantages, because whenever we have a message that is in error because the receiver application is down for whatever reason, then we can utilize also a queue, a dead message queue, to temporarily store the message that cannot be delivered, and then later on feed it again to the receiver application. So this means we don't have any longer a dependency on SAP to resend the data. We can just resend the data from the dev message queue. Also, the same applies a little bit when a receiver system is down for maintenance. Then again, SAP can just keep sending the data in whatever pace it wants, and the data can be stored on the queue. And whenever the receiver system is back online, we can send the data directly. And also for the processing speed, also there we no longer have any dependency on what is done on SAP side. SAP can send whatever quantity of data that is needed to SAP Advanced Event Mesh, and it will be stored on a queue. And from CI, we can send the data in whatever pace is required by the receiver application. Without, like I mentioned before, any dependency on the SAP system. And lastly, also adding a receiver becomes much more easy. We just have to develop one more CI flow, and we have to add another queue that can be subscribed to the same topic. And that's basically it. So also there, we no longer have any dependency on SAP side. So this architecture is much more resilient and scalable in compared to the more traditional way of integrating. And one thing that we do have to keep in mind is the observability part, because it can be become less clear on how the data is flowing. So to keep a good control over the message flow, the observability becomes more and more important. That's it from my side. Martin, I think you will take it over, right?
Yes, thank you very much, Herwin, and thank you, Sander, for walking us through the main part of today's webinar. Before we move on to the Q&A session, we would like to share with you a summary of some of the key takeaways that we learned from today's session. So first, on the migration from PO to CI and the perspective that this could be an opportunity instead of a simply technical project. Second, we understood how we can leverage automation in this type of project in order to save valuable time and resources to organizations so they can focus on their core business. Then we discussed how you can set up this playbook for integration governance, essentially helping you maintain quality and consistency both during but also after the migration process. And then at the end, we saw a comparison of the current way of integration and what it could mean if you actually decouple the integration and take advantage of another component of integration suite, which is SAP Advanced Event Mesh. Last but not least, we also wanted to share with the audience that as a company, we do have the possibility to offer you a session. Basically, this is an expert session with one of our colleagues where we can discuss your specific SAP PO landscape, what you may need in order to run the SAP PO assessment, and receive some more tailored advice on how you can plan this migration, or if you are already in the process of migration, what type of considerations is good to take into account at this stage. And as well, also on this type of session, we can answer any questions or topics which are related to the move from PO to CI, or in general about SAP integration. And in case someone from the audience is interested to learn more about this, you can contact us at hello@rohuconsultancy.com. And with this, we conclude the main part of our presentation, and we can move on to our Q&A section. So if you have any questions, comments, or remarks, feel free to share those in our section. I will now quickly review if there is something already coming in. So I see a question related to EDA. So first question is, in EDA, if CI gets a message from the queue, tries to deliver it to the receiver, but fails, the receiver is down, will it put the message back up into the queue? What happens with such a message? Yeah, so I think the first question is related to event-driven architecture. If Sander, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, sure. I think it's a good question, and we are also aware of in PO how things are handled with also queuing system in SAP PO. And if you introduce advanced event mesh, you have basically all these options. So it was mentioned that there's possibility to retrigger as well. So there you can set up a scenario for a retry where it's a technical error and it retries to deliver from there. When it finally is not accepted, then it can go, for example, to the dead message queue, as highlighted. But you can also control whether you want it first in, first out, or the other way around. So you have actually all this, yeah, control to make sure you leave your sequencing is in the right state as how you want it, as well as reprocessing. And yeah, that those are options that you have with the EDA setup when you have a specific component like advanced event mesh handling it.
Thank you, Sander, for covering this one. Another question that we received is related to, I think, the automation aspect of the migration, and essentially how to get automation tools is being asked. So I
Yeah,
think,
so on this side, I think Martin, there's a tool from SAP which is in place. So a good place to start is having that run as an assessment tool. But for the enhancements which we have talked about, yeah, we would advise to get in contact with us to look into your specific situation, and then yeah, explain you how the tool can be used for you to help you enhance those additional automations that are critical for running all the aspects that we mentioned in the call today. I don't know if you want to add something on top of it, Martin.
yeah, exactly. I think the key point here that you're trying to make is that it's also a tailored advice that we can provide to the specific setup of the customer. And in case you would like to learn more about what this could mean for your specific setup, feel free to reach out either via email or through our website in order to speak a bit more about how we could automate and help your organization. And another question that we received is related to what is the first thing to consider when starting the migration to SAP Cloud Integration. I think Sander already in his part covered that a good place to start would be the SAP PO assessment, which could give you a general overview of your setup and give out a report that will show you an analysis of your setup in PO and show you what could be already migrated, where there is more effort needed, and yeah, essentially give you this breakdown. However, it is important to note that in this SAP PO assessment, there are some limitations, and this is exactly where we come in with our expertise of enhancing this assessment and giving you even more details about how you can execute this migration, because in the standard SAP PO assessment, the connectivity aspects are not considered, testing aspects are not considered, so there are some other considerations that should be taken into account in order to have a more complete overview of how to start this and eventually perform this.
Yeah, in such a session, we can help you go to the right interpretation of the report and tell what it means for you for your landscape, also with your envisioned governance if it's in place, and your integration design principles that you want to be make key as part of the migration. So we take that all into account, and that we could do as a first conversation in the session that Martin mentioned.
Yeah. Thank you, Sander, for adding on this, and I see no further questions coming in the Q&A section, but if you would like to learn a bit more or have something that you would like to share over email, feel free to contact us. I thank you for attending and wish you a nice afternoon or a nice reminder of the day, wherever you may be. Thank you.